What is up, guys? This is Magnus Manga, and I'm coming to you with my March 2023 manga haul, so let's get right into it. First up is VIZ Media with Blue Box Volume 4 by Koji Miura. It's a really nice slice of life rom-com with a lot of sports elements in it, with the male protagonist playing badminton and the female protagonist, who is the character right here, playing basketball. Next up is The Elusive Samurai by Yusei Matsui, who is famous for his series Assassination Classroom, and it's a series about samurai in medieval Japan, and the main character is essentially on the run after a samurai overthrew the current shogunate and is placing the emperor as in charge of Japan, and he's kind of on the run and is attempting to reinstate the shogunate. It's a decent series, definitely not as good as a lot of the other ongoing shonen releases, but I personally really like it. Next up is One Punch Man Volume 25. I'm so happy that they're kind of speeding up the releases of the series, because volumes 22 to 24, I think it took them like a year to print, and then this one took about 6 months, a little less, so hopefully that keeps up, because I love One Punch Man. I've been keeping up relatively to the new chapter releases, and it has been insane, and the physical releases are surprisingly behind. Next up is a volume from April that I picked up at the beginning of May, and it is Dawn to Dawn Volume 3, and it was actually really good. It's definitely getting better and better with each passing volume, and while I was hesitant about the series at first, I definitely have begun to really enjoy it. Next up is Shoha Shoten Volume 2 by Akanari Asakura and Takashi Obata. Obata being famous for his work on Death Note, Platinum N, Hikaru no Go, and All You Need Is Kill, to name a few. And it is a pretty solid comedy slice of life manga that I definitely recommend. Next up is Volume 3 of Hell's Paradise by Yuji Kaku, who will have another volume appear a little later in the haul. And if you don't know what it's about, a bunch of prisoners on death row are sent out onto this mysterious island to find the elixir of life or die trying. It's really good. The anime is out right now, and this volume is actually up to date where the anime is, and I think the series will end around Volume 4. Well, so this season will end with Volume 4. There are 13 volumes total. Next up is a hype volume that just dropped. This technically is a volume that will come out at the beginning of June, but I got it early because of Right Stuff, and that is Sakamoto Days Volume 8 by Yuto Suzuki, and this series and all of its covers are fire. It's essentially about this assassin who retired, and he's getting dragged right back into this lifestyle that he had abandoned. And yeah, it's really interesting. It's pretty funny. The action is top tier. The first couple of volumes are a little hard to get into, but when it gets rolling, it gets really good. Next up is the other series by Yuji Kaku that I'm collecting, Ayashimon, and this is a canceled Shonen Jump series that only has 3 volumes, and this is Volume 2. It's about like Yakuza and like monsters and stuff like that. It's pretty solid for a 3-volume series. It kind of gets overhated. I personally don't see why it got canceled in Shonen Jump. And lastly, for VIZ Media, is a very hype series, and that is Mashle Magica Muscles Volume 12. And I am so glad to finally read it. I love Mashle. It's so good. While the comedy isn't always the best, and the art style and the story make up for it, and I definitely feel like any complaints about the series should be given a little bit of grace, because this is the guy's first series, and it is a really impressive one. In like the author's notes and stuff in the volume, it talks about the anime that's been coming out, so definitely check that out. I think it's on episode 7 or 8 right now. Lastly for VIZ Media, I have this Haikyuu art book, which I was so happy that I finally got. I'm like, oh, it looks so nice, and I'm just like, all the art and stuff. It's sad that, like, it got a little damaged, but it's fine as long as I take good care of it. It's so big that it doesn't even fit on my shelf, and it's just like, oh, I was so happy to pick this up. I love Haikyuu. The art in it is so good, and I thought it was really funny in the volume, in the book, that it said that, like, was like some form of like poll in Shonen Jump that like said, what are series that have a great story but really bad art, and it got third place on that poll. And so the author was like, oh, I probably should, like, fix my art. And that's why around volume 10 there's like a really noticeable change in the art style of Haikyuu. So if you're like starting out Haikyuu and you're like, oh, this art is really bad, hold on to it. Yeah, and it'll get better for sure. The next publisher we'll be talking about is 7 Seas, since that's the publisher that I got the next most amount of volumes from. And first up is Marmalade Boy Volume 1, the collector's edition. So this is technically also a 2-in-1. Yeah, this is it's my first shoujo, and it is a pretty interesting one. I got recommended it by Meet the Weeb family, specifically Meet the Weeb dad, and yeah, it's an interesting. The premise is this family meets on like a cruise or something, and the parents decide to divorce and then remarry the other spouse, and so these two, the protagonists, end up getting moving into with each other, and shenanigans ensue, and they start kind of falling in love, but there's also a triangle. It's pretty weird, but I feel like it's pretty standard for shoujo. This is my first foray into the demographic of shoujo, and I think I might just keep to this one. I might try like Snow White with the red hair and some of those shoujo, but for the most part, it's not my thing. I also picked up Volume 2 of Marmalade Boy. Next up is Skippin' Loafer Volume 3, which I had returned previously because the volume that I had was misprinted, and so I got it fixed. And then also I picked up Skippin' Loafer Volume 7. So where this ended, it was crazy. I'm like, ugh, I can't wait for October when Volume 8 comes out, because like there was a whole build up to them like confessing, and it was so good, and so now I have to wait until October. And then next up is, I'm a big fan of music manga and music in general, and so Blue Giant was definitely up my alley, and I really enjoyed it. I've been struggling to find the next volume 3 and 4, so it'll probably be a while before I collect more of the series. That's it from 7 Seas. Sup guys, I want to take 1 second of your time to talk about one little thing. With the recent rise in manga prices, it can be a little expensive to continue collecting on manga. So that's why I highly recommend you guys use Takara Cafe for any and all manga purchases. On the website, all manga is 20% off, and then there are tons of different ways to kind of bring down that manga price. And if you use coupon code Magnus22, you can get another 10% off your purchase. So I highly recommend you check out Takara Cafe today. Next up is my Kodansha volumes, which I didn't pick up that much this month, which is surprising for me. So first up is Shaman King Flowers, volumes 1 and volume 2, which is interesting that they both came out in May. The reason is because the volume 1 was originally supposed to be published in March, but it got delayed, and so they released both of them at roughly the same time. And yeah, so essentially it's a sequel to Shaman King, and it's about the main character's son, and this event that is starting to occur because of the events in Shaman King. It's pretty good. It's only 6 volumes, so it's a pretty simple pickup. And lastly, from Kodansha is Fire Force Omnibus 4, which covers volumes 10 through 12. And then, yeah, which is around like the area between at the end of season 1 and the beginning of season 2, and I thought it was really solid, and I am really enjoying Fire Force. Now we're going to get into the Yen Press volumes, which I only had one new release from Yen Press, but it's a really good one. Oshinoko by Aka Akasaka and Mengo Yokuyari. And this series is amazing. If you've watched the anime, you definitely know it for sure. And it's really crazy, and it gets a really unique insight into celebrity culture in Japan. Next up is Horimiya Volume 4, which I'm slowly picking up. And it's crazy because I'm on Volume 4, and a bunch of stuff that happens in the anime has already happened. So it feels like I'm like almost halfway through the original series of the anime, and it's like, how I know that the anime did rush some stuff, which is why we're getting like a season 2-ish starting in July, which will cover a bunch of stuff that got missed in the manga. And so yeah, it'll be interesting. Next up is Kowloon Generic Romance Volume 1, which is a pretty solid like romance, kind of set in a semi-sci-fi futuristic world. And yeah, I think it was pretty solid. I'm definitely picking up more of it. And yeah. Next up is a publisher that I'm surprised that I got even this much of them, and it is Square Enix. And the first volume that I picked up from them is Diamonds of the Shadow Realm, which is by Hiromu Arakawa, who is the creator of Full Metal Alchemist. And it's a pretty interesting series that I think could go in some really interesting, unique directions, and I am excited for where it goes. The story is kind of pretty standard shonen, where like the main character has a twin sister who he takes care of, and then he's in this village that's kind of set in like a medieval type era, and so what happens is they're attacked by like a modern army, and it turns out that the village was just like separated from the outside world, and essentially they're like, he's going to try and rescue his sister, and yeah, it's pretty standard stuff. There is kind of a twist in there that I'm keeping hidden, but yeah, it was a pretty good first volume. Next up is a series that I'm considering dropping after picking up Volume 4 and seeing how that one goes, and that's Tokyo Aliens, and I am just not really vibing with it. I'm going to give it one more volume, since that's what I did with Kimono Jihen. For me, it'll be a 4-volume rule instead of a 3 or a 5. It's pretty standard, like aliens live amongst you, and there's like this government agency that's trying to keep them hidden type stuff. The art's pretty solid. I don't know, it's just not like crazy or unique enough for me to stay interested. It's literally, I only picked it up because of the cover, and it's alright. And lastly, from Square Enix is My Clueless First Friend, which is actually an omnibus. It's a 2-in-1 omnibus, and it was a really cute manga that I really enjoyed. I was inspired to get it because of the anime. I haven't seen the anime, but I've seen pics of it, and I do plan on watching it. And yeah, it's about this like little elementary school kid who transfers in, and there's this girl who's called the Grim Reaper, and he thinks that is like the coolest thing anyone could be called, and so he becomes friends with her despite everyone else kind of being like, why would you be friends with her? And yeah, I hope this will be one of those series where it covers like their friendship over like all throughout high school and all this stuff, and I think that would be really fun. I really enjoyed this volume, and definitely will be picking more. And since I have one more volume left, I'll get right to it, and that is Mob Psycho 100 Volume 11. This is a Dark Horse series, and it's my only Dark Horse manga. And Mob Psycho, it's great. The art, honestly, I feel like the art is overhated. Yeah, it's not always like, One Punch Man level or whatever, because they have a separate artist. But there's like some panels in this series that absolutely go hard, and I don't know why people are just, they take one glance at it and are like, oh, this is bad. No, it's actually pretty good. So here's the current state of my shelving right now. Yeah, I finally got all of the riser stuff situated. Already kind of getting a little tight on room. And I got Berserk and Witch Hat Atelier from the library. And I'm probably going to do that with some more manga just so I'm spending less money. So here are all the manga that I picked up in the month of May. Yeah, way crazier than I thought it would be. I hope you guys like, comment, and subscribe on this video. I have some plans for what I do when I reach 500, even though that is a milestone that is pretty far away. I think I'm going to do a giveaway. That's like my current plan. And then, yeah, we'll go on from there. So again, like, comment, subscribe. What are some of the manga that you picked out in this month? What are some of the manga that you are interested because of this haul video? And yeah, I'm so glad you guys chose to watch this video. Ciao.